Well, hello there, everyone. Here, show you right here. I'll talk about a cover letter right here, and I'm sure most of us have seen from the previous video that I put up. I'll talk about for cover letters and other than advertisements right here. But you see right here, as an example right here of like a type of a cover letter, and I know that most cover letters, the output, that the setting I put to it will be about up to at least 12 or maybe 11, pants, I think if it's Pekins or something like that, about the lettering, based on a document, to where if you're going to be writing to an employer, just to introduce yourself just a little bit more to what you do and all that. But let's just say that if you're going to be typing up a cover letter, maybe based on your resume, and let's just say if it's going to say something like, hire me, please, I have this amount of experience, or I have this kind of knowledge about computers and design, or it could be which calls like the sales first step, at the top, like if it's going to be talking about maybe goals or achievements or something like that. But let's just say that for any reason at all, if you're going to go and write a cover letter, and let's just say that this cover letter is going to be talking about your work and your experience, and maybe that about if you see any reason why you want to have that job for any particular reason. And so the way I wrote this cover letter right here was actually talking about right here. I'll talk about for coming soon. And I know I was telling everybody that I was going to be working on that, but working on a cover letter that talks about for coming soon. And so yeah, that why would you want to put that on your resume, and why would you want to maybe set that in like to where you're gonna have two separate documents? You're gonna maybe have the resume, and you're also gonna have coming soon. And I just really think too that to where that it's basically another way of explaining to that company about anything else that you want to write, maybe in the comment section or in the question section. And the type of stuff that you maybe want to talk about during a job interview. And like I say, that if you're going to maybe be getting some notes ready, just to ask a manager about, whenever if you're going to be going in for a job interview, if you want to go and write a cover letter, just explaining about a little bit about your experience, and as well as for any concern that you may have at the matter. But I use right here talk about for supercomputers, and I know these are two different titles right here, and whenever I was looking at this, I was just thinking too that they write about maybe about 2 or 3 or 4 sentences, and just kind of talking a little bit about these two sentences right here. And yeah, it seems like to me that that a cover letter should only take about maybe 5 or 10 minutes or so just to read and just to kind of better understand it. But it's not like that any articles that you're going to be reading about in the paper, or any documents that you're going to be reading about and want to know too exactly about, what is it about, if it's a thesis statement or something like that, what is it, what's this all about right here? But I want to show everybody here something else besides pictures, though. And I know that I was talking about contracts before, but talk about like our advertisements right here. That this right here actually talks about is to where that the best ways of how to be able to explain to your customers, if you're going to be an employee, and let's just say if you start working a job, that you want to go in and say business at your service. Exactly what does that mean? And it's basically that my source is saying is to where that I would probably mention it even on my resume, that your resume is supposed to be your marketing tool. And so it's like, say, if anybody has heard that before about business at your service, that it's basically another way of me saying is to where that for busy, that whenever you start working on something, and if you have a line of customers, something that maybe that unexpected, such as is to where if you have a line of customers, or that maybe that there's extra hours added to your shift that you were not really ready for, just not used to. So it sure seems that way to where that let's just say if you were in 3 weeks of training, that you may not be fully licensed to handle this job. And let's just say that maybe not all decisions have been final yet. So let's just say if you were just hired for a job, and you're going to maybe use business at your service just for like, which calls like all for hope for the best, for like if it's kind of like best wishes and all hope for the best. But I think that really though that most employers will probably say too that if you're going to be applying for a job, that they're not really hiring anybody in it, which it calls like for how good you are working in a certain department of the store. They're really, I guess, they're really counting on a lot of the reliability, a lot of the fast pace, and a lot of reliability. And so it sure seems that way to where that you're going to use something like to where that something like a business at your service, or that you can count on me. Yeah, that I'm on top of schedule, and so yeah, so you're going to use words like that just to say as to where about how other customers and employees can really count on you so far as how well that your work goes. And so that's something that we can probably say that nowadays with most of these interviews that it sure seems that way to where that whenever you go in for a job interview, that sometimes those job interviews might last for about maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And let's just say that that one of the reasons why it lasted a little bit longer was because of the fact about you were showing them some of your examples of your work. But still though, it sure seems that way to where a lot of cover letters nowadays that are displayed is to where that just to talk about just something. I'm like, yeah, for like more, for professionals especially, that we don't really need anything handwritten. We need an actual document where you can actually send it electronically. And I think that's really the key factor matter is that everybody that if you want to call it the 21st century, that a lot of things going electronically. That even if it is even if it is extended absence greeting or something like that, and people say that I don't know if it would really surprise me that if you had to call off work because if you were sick, or maybe if it was a vacation time or something like that, that you would have to write some sort of a letter explain to your employer about the reason why you had to be off work. You had to be absent from work for 4 or 5 days or something like that. But this right here actually talks about working, and like everybody say that there's probably a lot of published extended absence letters, all kinds of things that you can even type using from Microsoft Office 365. You might say you have these programs where you just write in just a quick note just to say that a quick note about something. But I'm actually talk about for supercomputers. So you see right here that in the future there will be supercomputers, and so this is a few say a computer used to power the networking connection. So this right here, this paragraph right here actually talks about supercomputers. So what exactly is a supercomputer? The way I think about it is toward another way of how you want to say it is just toward that a computer powerful enough to where you can actually operate it. And I say that a lot of that technology. A lot of that technology that's now available at home and even from our fingertips from our phones. And another way to describe a supercomputer is another way, if you want to kind of call it, is to where that for how it's operated. So, but the type of future I'm talking about, and talk about supercomputers, so is to where that this computer is going to be with you wherever you go, anywhere in the world. So whenever I talk about the future, though, I'm also talking about that technology, for how far technology should go within the next 5 or 10 years from now for where it needs to go. So the way I think about though is like you put something on a resume and you say coming soon, but still that I know with me though, just to kind of read a little bit more, it's like recognized by the person. So yeah, so it sure seems that way to where based on my study, though, about computers, though, that it should be about the fact about, should we be setting any sorts of ground rules about software programs and technology to where if we're going to be using our own personal computers to handle our stuff and our documents, do you think that maybe we should be setting our ground rules to where have this, how that information is released, and if so, that I'm sure a lot of people will say that, you're going to be using the tablets and the phones. But here's the thing, though, that with a supercomputer, though, that what I mean by supercomputer, the computer that has enough power to where that it seems like impossible, right? To where that there's like, yeah, if unless if we're talking about any source of failure, what I mean by is to where a computer has a power of its own. And so the way I think about it, though, is that have right here talk about with this these paragraphs right here, but your business at your service. So this right here is actually what I would probably use for my cover letter, but still, that looking at my resume and like anybody that may even think too that looking at your resume that a lot of the things that's associated with computers that you talk about, but really though that maybe not everybody's really going to want to mess with the computers unless for any reason a new system that comes out, or if anything that there's any technical problems or some sort. But it sure seems that way to where that the first thing that you would maybe want to mention on your cover letter is how are you able to handle 50 hours a week? And let's just say if you were to mention something like that, coming soon features, and sometimes it sure seems that way to where companies are going to be asking you about, are you willing to handle at least 10 hours a day just to kind of study and understand what the computer's doing, what the program is doing, and for how you handle the service and all that. So really though, and I could be honest with everybody here that a lot of things that I've been working with from over the years, and it sure seems that way to where you're going to have problems. But I like you thinking too is to where that you're able to learn a lot of things from those problems. But I'm like one or two that sometimes it seems like whenever you can't get something to work, especially. But really though that the only power that you can really discover is the fact about is like the more you better understand what you're working with. And so really though that the way I think about it too though that talk about your cover letters though, that you write a cover letter, and like I say is like based on from your experience though working with computers though, that it sure seems that way that there's a bottom part right here, and I'm going to say, can we really explain what our experience is whenever it comes to learning new things, and if we are familiar with how things work sometimes, and coming soon means. So it's basically that if you're going to be sending this a letter like this, maybe electronically, and let's just say though the companies are going to be looking at to where things coming soon to be developed, things that are going to be soon released data, more advanced systems, and so that's why it sure seems that way to where that whenever you look at your resume, that it sure seems that way to where you had to have a cover letter ready just to kind of tell them about your knowledge, and at the time that you one or two that this cover letter you may have to give it a title such as a follow up based on any source of experiment, or like a quick study note or something like that. So yeah, that what the letter is just explaining about what you found out, and what you were planning on doing about achieving, fixing something, as well as the new source of technology. So it's like yeah, that whenever you look at a resume, that it sure seems that way to where that most of them were designed to where companies could get a better understanding about what you do. Look over it for 5 minutes, and if you're the right candidate that they want to interview. But I know with me though that that it's like me is to where that a lot of things that you want to talk about, and a lot of things that I would probably say a lot of things that talk about, if anything, is during the job interview, and if anything during training. Yeah, a lot of the stuff for sure. If you're going to be going through any source of training, that companies will probably ask to see some of that information about what you know about how to fix something, and what your experience is like. And so yeah, that so at the time it sure seems that way that whenever you're hired for a job, that you gotta kind of keep that in mind, to where if you're going to be going through any source of training, that keep a documentation of what is it that you found out whenever you were checking some stuff. But still, I know a lot of times though, you may hear that all the time, to where people say that you need to learn to speak up about stuff if you see something wrong. But still that I just really think though that people may think that really based on from my own opinion and my own perspective though, and want to know too, if maybe not everybody's really noticing the same thing, but still that I mainly want to talk about supercomputers and also business at your service. That's just another way of me stating to where that if you're going to be hired for a job, if I'm going to be hired for a job, that this is what I would more likely say right here. That this is what I would say is your business at your service. That another way of telling everybody that if you're hired for a job, and let's just say that the job quantity, I'm like, for how long it takes just to take care of something, and want to know too that how you're able to handle that, but. Really though, that maybe not everybody's first 3 weeks on a job, even if it's training, it's going to be very smooth, and you might realize about how complicated it is. But I don't know. Do we really call that normal, or if anything, just about the fact about really just kind of getting used to everything, how everything's performed, and all that. But the way I think about too, that not everybody really understands, this like not everybody, I guess, really understands a lot of that stuff in the future. So for supercomputers, and as well as the graphics and how everything's managed electronically. So that's why it sure seems that way, to where that you just kind of have to think about that, to where that things are going to gradually get better, but just to understand what's going on, and then knowing about what you can do to fix it, and what's the best way of how to be able to work it out, to where if new things need to come in, new products and services need to come in. But the way I think about it too, though, that based on from a lot of our experience, though, even if you're a professional, though, that you were to where that, we probably think to where that most of the time, if you're going to be applying for a job, going through 3 weeks of training, it sure seems that way, to where that, you may not think that, it was going to maybe take you maybe 3 weeks, and 3 weeks, and it's like, say, a job interview as well as the meetings, but still, we may think that, a resume should be just one piece of paper, just one document explaining your skills, but let's just say that, they found that somebody found a lot more what they need in your package, and let's just say that about advanced training, or about maybe information that you found out about this or that, or maybe customers that were talking about this or that. But still that we all know that if you're going to be applying for a job, though, you say you're right, coming soon, and just talking about stuff. And I know that I don't know if everybody has tried it yet, but still that what cover letters are really there for, I guess, is really just to understanding a little bit more about who you are, and then what position that you're interested in, and as well as your level of experience. But really, though, that unless if you have been with the company for maybe at least 10 years, if you have gotten a promotion, then you would maybe include maybe coming soon cover letter or something like that. But I'm just really kind of doing this as I say, so far as really that in case if anybody say, you don't have to believe everything you read, but still that just to kind of get an understanding about if you're going to be reading a document like this right here, and want to know just a little bit too, to where that the basics understanding about something, and where our technology is going, now, where's it going to be going within the next 10 years from now, and that's basically what it is that whenever I say business at your service, and if you want to kind of call it, a short pronunciation for it will be for the BAYS or something like that, but still that business at your service, and just another way of how you want to stay is to word it that whenever you were first hired, that the company was actually telling you that we'll go ahead and hire you to do customer service, or to be able to help manage the payment center or something like that. So let's just say if you do start working a job, and then that company is going to tell you that we hired you for this reason, but I know that and I know companies might even say too that whenever you first whenever that company found your resume, that there might be all kinds of stories that the people might even say too, that to where that that companies, just like putting up an ad in the paper, though, that, maybe not all companies are going to be very clear and understanding about what your training experiences are and everything. So it seems like to me, you really just have to start somewhere. But I just really think, too, is to where whenever you write a cover letter, that's basically, it sure seems that way. It's really just only the beginning. It's just like, it's just a scrap piece, it's just a scrap, that's not really what you call the full edition of what you need to do. So I guess if you want to call it, it's like a scrap piece, and we all know what a scrap piece is. It's basically just a small portion of what you need to do for the job until you're able to get something going, even if it is an employment or something like that, just to get a better understanding about, what you know and what you can do whenever it comes to using computers and programs, and as well as, for how you're willing to handle, fixing it, taking care of the situation. So we all know whenever we're hired for the job that, we go ahead and accept the offer just because that, well, we looked at your resume and we think that you're a good fit. But, I wonder too, how come that there's no background check? And, you wonder too, that about almost every time you fill out a job application, there's going to be a background check. But, still, that with this background check, that you're likely thinking too, that, yeah, put business at your service. And what does that mean? Well, you tell people that, yeah, well, if anything, you'll find out the details whenever you go ahead and look at, look at the details about basic training. But I don't know. I really think too that people might say that really, if you're really like the only person who really says that and think that people are going to hire you just because you think that you have good knowledge about, how to satisfy everybody whenever it comes to jobs. But, really though, that the past 20 years, I'm like, how far have we come along with computers, compared to the past 20 years? And I want to know just a little bit too, to where, for how many computers that are sold, per year, and let's just say if we're talk about maybe over 10 billion computers or so worldwide, how many devices that rely on this service per year. And you could probably think about to where that about every time there's a problem, think about that, to where business at your service. Even though if maybe if you are working with a private company, or just saying is to where, yeah, well, if you're going to have a lot of the time, a lot of these shifts, and probably thinking too that we all know that job is not just saying it. Whenever you do get hired for a job, that it's not just what you call, it's not just a paycheck, but it's also just to get a little bit more of an understanding about, what you do. And then whenever you graduate from school, and everybody say, yeah, and then I'm sure that there's such thing as graduating from a job too, if you're going to be working a job and maybe getting a promotion or something like that. But still, that the way we need to think about this is mainly about the fact about, improvements, to where that if we probably think is to where that the job took a lot longer than what you thought it would, and then maybe you know the fact about that you need to try to get a better understanding about, what all that you need, just to be able to perform, just to make better progress. And it sure seems that way, to where that, if even though if you have to spend about maybe 5 or 10 hours a day working on something, and people say that, at least one task and one job might, take up to maybe, up to 5 hours. So I guess what's really the best way of how to explain everything, such as is to where whenever problems come up, and maybe the best solutions. But it just seems like to me that you just want to kind of keep it that short and reasonable, and says to where business at your service, and telling everybody that you just pretty much, I would probably say that, put that on your resume and see how people think about that. And 102, business at your service, whatever that's supposed to mean. Well, as long as it's getting companies' attention, and like I say, yeah, that's basically what it is. Everybody, that business at your service is basically another way of how you want to get the hiring team's attention. So based on over the fact about whatever, how many paragraphs this is, I would say that this is about maybe 18 sentences altogether. But based on your understanding about what you know about computers, and as well as what the future holds and all that, but still, that I just thought I'd show everybody here about talk about for business at your service. And yeah, like Notepad and all that, that if you want to go ahead and take down notes and all that, but still, that how are you going to be able to handle a job to where if you were asked to work maybe up to maybe a 30 up to maybe 20-hour shift, and let's just say if you were called maybe if you were asked to work overtime, or maybe if it's overnight hours, and let's just say maybe if it's around tax time, that companies are going to be asking you to correspond with them. And so it's like, yeah, that we all know that a job is not just, it may not just be temporarily, but still, what can you do that's going to be making that difference? What can you do that can make a difference? And I think that that should be updated on a resume. That companies are looking for progress and success. They're not really looking for too many failures, and they're not looking for anything that's related to unexperienced and not the proper training. So we all know that that whenever you're going to be looking for work, to just kind of look at the I don't know if you want to call it the common pronunciation, to where anything that you want to put, anything that you want to update on your resume, to where about what progress that you're willing to give to this position. And it sure seems that way, to where just like putting up an ad in the paper, that you got to explain to these companies further details about what you do. But I could probably say too, though, that based on what I'm talking about, is actually talking about to where companies who had not hired me before, and they're just kind of get a better understanding about what is it that I do, and what is it that they find on my resume that makes it that appealing to why they want to hire me. And so I can say, yeah, if you say business at your service on your resume, then chances are that there's going to be companies that are going to get your attention. You're going to get their attention, and then yep, say for and the best of luck, for the summer, huh? But still, a lot of things that you mention on a cover letter or on a resume, it sure seems that way. You may not know what everything means, but at least that, though, have you heard that before? What can you do that would make a difference? Have you heard that before? But anyway, so I just talk about right there is like talk about promotion, and I don't know if everybody here wants to go and read all this right here, but we talk about gateway brands, and as well as that with supercomputers are working remotely with this supercomputer, and as well as getting to know your work a little bit more. And so yeah, that there's nearly 500,000 people who rely on the computers nowadays, and with like even with social media, and so that's why it sure seems that way, to where that I think that the right tool, of course, to think about that is to where that whenever it comes to looking for work, though, that you can't really can you really set any restrictions about how many hours per week or so per day that you're available to work. And let's just say that if you talk about maybe up to 5 hours, and let's just say maybe if it is up to 40 hours a week. And so yeah, that whenever you're hired for a job, and then want to know too is to where how you're able to handle everything. And but I just really think too is to where that if you're just trying to get everything together, so when I say yeah, you're right, coming soon. And so yeah, that I was also thinking too, maybe talking about advanced brain power, and that's something that I was also thinking about too. That but I don't know. People may think that if you go to my profile and you may say give a suggestion, write a cover letter, okay? Write a cover letter, maybe just talking a little bit more about what do you think? I'm like yeah, that besides computers, I'm like what do you think? That I'm like yeah, but maybe besides computers, though, it can maybe be about maybe kitchen appliances or something like that. But still, that but we all know that writing a cover letter, as we know that yeah, and I don't know if anybody may want to, is that should you write any sorts of letter explain to your employer about reasons to why that you had to be absent from work. And so let's just say if it was vacation time or maybe extended absence, what's a good way of how to start that? But still, that I'm really just talking about right here. I'm talking about just a few sentences, and I know a lot of times I was showing everybody about paintings and drawings. If everybody just wants to see, just look at some of this writing right here. But still, that how our technology is discovered and what is and that is why I use this meaning to phrases for what is coming soon to be discovered. So whenever you're going to be looking at a resume, though, I just really think that you should be looking upon the future as well, as to where that should you better explain to the company about how you're able to handle the job, and then how you're able to handle 20 hours a week. And so, like I say, is to where that, yeah. So it seems like to me though that whenever you do reach out to these companies, and they're gonna maybe see something that they don't see on every resume. People that you say the things that you would normally see on a resume, but sometimes you don't see them, and want to know just a little bit too, to where that the things that you're able to come up with, the kind if you want to call it the hashtags that you're able to come up with, so far as why do you think people should hire you for this job? And I just really think though that I would say something like business at your service, and I keep thinking too that that's just something that I made up. It's not it's not real. It's not something that you need to think about as a tool. But I guess you could say it too, where that's another way of how I tell everybody that think about a job, to where that if you think that a job is just temporary, think about that, to where that whenever you're hired for a job is to give them the overall expectation. Because I know whenever I did get hired at the job that I had now, of course, that I did tell them that I'll go ahead and try the job for 90 days. To me though, just try it before you're actually hired. So that's why it sure seems that way, to where that if you're going to be going from job to job, and people say that yeah, long story short, but still that based on your work experience though, that companies are looking for reliability, and as well as anything that you want to say so far as how you're able to handle a job. And let's just say that you might say too that while you're at work, you don't really think that things are really your job. You think that that's not your responsibility. That's not your responsibility, but I'll be willing to do it for you today if that's something that you would like to say, or something like that. Or no, I'm off the clock, or something like that. So it's like, yeah. So any cover letter that you're going to be writing, or anything explaining about your work performances, it sure seems that way, to where that you want to talk about, the future, you want to talk about your experience, but it sure seems that way, to where that it's really about, getting the employer's attention. It's really about the attention, not really about the fact about, oh, okay, well, I see that almost every resume is going to say that. So it's like, say it is, to where that employers look at your resume, and they're going to be thinking too, yeah, that they're going to be looking at your resume and thinking that, yeah, I've seen that before, or I've already looked at it. That's that person, they don't have the experience to do that, but do that type of work. But I just really think too that whenever you're going to be applying for a job, that it's like, yeah, that what's the first thing that you're going to maybe tell the customers? And like I say, they get want to get the line moving faster, and probably thinking too that yep, something's going to take a lot longer than what you thought it was, just to get done. But it seems like to me though that you don't really need to include that on a cover letter, saying as to where how do you know whenever you're done with the job? Yeah, you're going to be ready to retire within the next 10 years. You've had it with this job. And so I mean, I really don't know what should be kept confidential, but still that but let's just say that if you work for a job maybe for at least a year, and there's going to be these ups and downs about it, but let's just say though that there's been some times to where that if you want to call it the entry level, to where if it's too much stress, and then if a lot of work that they ask you to do, and so that's why it sure seems that way, to where you just want to say that I'm done, I'm through with the job, but still that business at your service, and people say that business at your service is not the same thing as quitting. So people say business at your service. That's That's supposed to be another way of how you want to say that, I am professionally trained to handle the job despite about how difficult it is. And also you can maybe say something like that you can count on me to try to do my best, to fix the problem. So it sure seems that way. A lot of these customers are going to be looking for that, the tools and the right proper training, just to get the job done. And so that's why sure seems that way, especially like on the cover letter. That hey, that can we really rely? Can you explain a little bit more about what you're talking about? Coming soon. That means it is about to be released and developed and to be worked on, during the time being. And think about what has past happened in the past 20 years, and a lot of these remote jobs especially. So it's like, like remote control, and we all probably think that, how many of us really believe that a lot of jobs that operate by remote control, but still, that whenever it comes to, explaining about your work performance, though, it's like, a lot of jobs out there, like a lot of jobs, you'll likely learn too that you might be surprised over the fact about that, one small task that can make a real big difference. But it sure seems that way to where it has to be, say if it has to be developed, and they say it's going to take time in the process. But let's just say that one document, one electronic document, one cover letter that can maybe explain a little detail, written by that writer, and then maybe a proofreader just to read and understand a little bit more about what you're talking about. And just to kind of get the company to better understand what you're talking about. And I know I was thinking too, to maybe write a cover letter talking about, advanced brain power, about how well that you know your computer as well as the computer gets to know you. And especially like the devices, like if it's the Kindle or if it's the tablet. That with these devices, though, most of them, if they're set properly, if it's handled properly, that they say is to where that they'll be able to know who's handling that device. And let's just say that you may never know. You may have a job one of these days and you didn't know about it. But let's just say that just be surprised about it. Just be surprised about the progress. But anyway, I just thought I'd show everybody here about some of this writing right here, and it's black and white, but still, that topic for business at your service. And I keep thinking too that really though, do you really see that on every resume? Do you see that on every cover letter? And I kept thinking too that if it is made up, if you want to kind of call it made up, or just like what you call is like just another way of just it's like, if it's another way of promising somebody that you'll be willing to work hard to get the job done, but just another way of, say, just to make you feel a little bit more comfortable with the situation. To if you run into that problems to where you start running out of items in the inventory, or maybe that where overtime is getting out of control, and a lot of employees are saying is to where that they've been putting in a lot of overtime. So nowadays it sure seems that way to where that that whenever businesses start speeding up, especially around the holidays, that the companies are going to probably say that even though if you put this resume together nearly 3 months ago or something like that, for how long it has been, if it's been 90 days, and chances are your resume and your cover letter are going to be in that package. And then it's possible that companies are going to say that we found your resume and all you have to do is just come to this meeting at 10 o'clock, and then we'll go ahead and get you assigned to work with somebody. And so yep, and I just really think too that real quick, everybody, that whenever it comes to job searching, that whenever everything is a real smooth, when everything starts to get to be a smoother progress, and it sure seems that way to where that 1 year seems to be an awful long time, and I think it's really kind of ridiculous about how long it takes just to be able to get a job. But let's just say that if you're going to be working on something, and let's just say that you may think that you kind of look back and want to know why you got angry and why you want to make a big deal about stuff, and was that really that complicated, just to be able to get something going. But if we're talking about that, for how you were trained to work a job, and it sure seems that way, to where that you really do all that work for nothing. And you kind of feel that way, to where that whenever you get trained on how to do something, that's basically mean that you're taking your time to learn the new things, and that you're just willing your time to be able to help somebody else. And so whenever it comes to getting the right license and getting the right permit and working out with the hiring tips, and so it sure seems that way. It's just extra work, and half the time you feel like saying is to where that I'm not doing it for just for a club. I'm not doing it for a party, just for fun. But I mean, I really don't know if people probably say that, do you really need to write a cover letter explaining about clubs or parties, about your overall experience about it? Is that, yeah, if they don't have no sandwiches or snacks there, or if anything, maybe something for me to drink or something to snack on, then I'll have to mention that on the letter, saying this to where that, you did not have no food there, and plus that there was no games and no activities. So it sure seems that way, that if you're going to be saying this to where there's a party going on, and you say based on your experience though that, yeah, you had to pay, you had to pay for the tickets, or I'm like, yeah, if there was a band that came to the party, there was music at the party, but still, people might think it too is to where if you're going to have any sort of letter explaining about you're planning on having a party at some time this summer, and yeah, that whenever the company opens up, and this is what's going to be going on. So yeah, the story can kind of go on and on about letters. If you're going to be writing a letter, that what exactly do how do you want to start the letter by saying? But I just really think though that, yeah, that the business at your service is just another way of me saying is to where that yeah, that for whenever you first hire me for the job, that this is basically what I was trying to do. And so yeah, just getting the job done. I guess you say that, even if you're going to be starting as a part-time employee, that you want to just say something like that, to where that yeah, that something's a lot harder than what it is, and that just say is to where to try to get the job done. And I know a lot of times though that whenever you first start working a job, that is there really a timer set to where that yeah. 100 minutes is how long it should take just to be able to get it done, and but still, but I just really think though that that yeah, that just for how the job is handled, especially, and as well as knowing about for how to be ready and prepared to where if something don't work, then go ahead and have like a well, I say this backup plan may not work either, but just say business at your service can probably mean a lot of things. But if you want to go ahead and talk about that, like on a resume, so people say that, yeah, well, if you're going to go ahead and update your resume in a 102, that you may not know very much about business, but let's just say that the things that you want to mention about is to where what things that you set first, most important, first agenda, and compared to what's last, to be successfully, completed. But still, so that's something I talk about too, But anyway, everybody, I just thought I'd show you this right here. But still, I talk about with supercomputers, and I know, a lot of people are thinking too that, yeah, supercomputers, that could mean a lot of things. But still, that, if you know what the future holds, it's like I say, in your definition for a supercomputer. Does that mean a computer that never crashes, or like I know it's a supercomputer? What I mean by is that a computer that's another way of how you want to introduce the future. In the future there will be supercomputers. In the future that there's going to be a computer that won't require you to always make sure that you have your log. And I'm like, so yeah, that just the process just going to work a little bit different. It makes it more easier and convenient for everybody else, but still that. A lot of companies are going to probably say too that they're really going to be looking for a lot of that stuff, and if we're talking about more conveniency, and as well as for how everybody else is all familiar with it. So that's why you keep thinking too that yeah, anything that you think that was unimaginable thinking, to where that, yeah, in the future you didn't think that the future of computers, of supercomputers, were going to be operating by remote control. But still, about what is your knowledge about computers necessarily. I'm like, well, my knowledge about computers is having my own home computer, and I'll tell everybody that first of all, it was having my own home computer before I actually went any further with anything else, really. But anyway, for what you found out about doing your research and knowing about really business at your service. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great